Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Well, greetings everybody. This is the Retro Zoo Super Show, and I am your host, Kai. I am back in the studio by myself today. We are, for those of you listening when this comes out, you know you've been involved in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic, and we have been in Kakariko Village encouraged to as much as possible to stay home, to, you know, if for those of us who can work at home, to do so, but to limit contact as much as possible. We here at WTRI are technically able to broadcast the show solo, and so that is what I am doing here today, and so for the time being, that's what's going to happen. From interactions that I've been having on the phone, on social media, this has been like so many of these these massive, often unexpected events in life where people definitely react differently. And this isn't designed to say that my way of reacting to this is the proper way, or anything like that. It's reminding me a lot of mourning. That when loved ones die, people handle it differently. And this has been very much like that. And I've come across several people who've been just a sudden burst of productivity, and others who are, taking the time to kind of pull back a little and relax more. People who are taking things all in stride, and others who are reacting more with more concern, with more, oftentimes even fear. And Adla and I have been going through ups and downs on that too, and it is so weird how kind of isolation really does affect us. I will say, with the release of the new Animal Crossing game on the Switch, this is probably the best time ever that could have been released, and since we were going to have to postpone our RTS discussion a little bit, so that Stephen and I can find a time to actually get together again, or work out where we can record remotely or something like that. I had decided to finally for the first time ever plug in an Animal Crossing game last week. I've never played this series before. I did have a copy of City Folk, which I understand is not the most beloved title in this series. From the reactions I've gotten, it might be, of the main series, the least liked, or at least well down on the list. But this is the one I had on hand, and it proved it's like, it's like, look, if I'm going to be introduced to the series, might as well get the free one out of the way first. And, so last week, if you were listening, you heard my first, reaction to the game, my first look at the game, and my initial thoughts about it. And I have spent the last week getting to know it a little bit more, and also now digging into the series more, and to kind of give a little bit of a fuller take this time. And I gotta say, in the midst of everything that's going on, I'm really enjoying playing this game right now. And it's like my taste in games, more go toward, somebody with a sword that's hacking at thing. Like the game I was playing right before this that I'm going to get back to hopefully very soon was, I was gonna try to get through a full play of Baldur's Gate. If you remember when we did cover that game, I played it originally, but, and I played through the end, the original release, not the extended edition, but the original release when it first came out. I did play the game and very much enjoyed it. But I did cheat at the end. Got a downloaded program to kind of, tweak some stats for myself. And that's how I kind of got through the end of the game, and even then only just. And so I wanted to play it through again. Now the expanded edition, you actually get there is a difficulty setting, and it's really, really interesting to me that the normal difficulty on the game is actually easier than the original game, because in the normal difficulty of this game, it's like all the enemies have like 75% hit points, and you get max hit points on level up, and also you don't get any character, no character gets permadeath, which is always super entertaining when that happens on the screen, because they literally blow up, but that prevents resurrection and all that good jazz that you want to do with your characters that you've worked so very, very hard on. And so it's very entertaining like that. Even the normal difficulty is actually easier than the original, second edition AD&D rules would set it up to be. Even so, I found a lot of very difficult areas in this game, but I'm absolutely loving getting back into this game. Thrilled to be back. It is one of my favorite PC games of all time. And, I hope to move on to, Baldur's Gate 2 right afterwards. And I'm very, very much looking forward to that. But, did take a pause in that to throw on some Animal Crossing. And I'm really glad I did. It's like this real breath of fresh air coming through, that this is a game that's meant to be relaxing, that's meant to be engaging in a different way than most video games are. And, I find it very interesting and very soothing. And I'm glad, I'm glad to be playing it in general, but I'm also glad to be playing it right now. And I'm glad that the new one came out right now, because I think that this is the kind of thing that's needed. This is the kind of game that, in general, we need games like this. It's like, it's like any other form of art. Whether it's a book, it's a movie, it's a poem, whatever. Sometimes it's meant to grab you. Sometimes it's meant to drive up your adrenaline. Sometimes it's meant to touch you. And sometimes it's meant to give you that emotional catharsis at the end that we kind of, along with the characters, just feel this emotional weight that kind of comes boiling over at the end. But sometimes sometimes we sometimes we want to watch that movie that is just chill, or it's funny, or it's just one of those types of movies that you put on to just chill out for a little bit. Same thing with a book. You don't want to read Charles Dickens every time. You want to intersperse it with some other types of books. And we need that in video games as well. And so I really do appreciate the place that these sorts of games get into. Now, before we get to that though, in my town of Loria, we did, things have been moving. Being completely new to this series, I did not know what to expect on April Fool's Day. If this was even an event that was covered in this game, I know so much of this game is based on the real calendar, on the real clock. But I didn't know whether April 1st was going to be something that was kind of, programmed into the game. And so I did invite, Stefan Stevens out, to hang out with us on that day, to just see what the place was like, on April 1st. So Stefan, are you on the line with me?
Yes, Kai, I am. I do appreciate, the opportunity to, get out of the house a little bit. I did try. It was a very awkward event, where we were, we did want to, experience the event in the town of Loria, but at the same time, we did want to practice social distancing.
Yeah. And we still ended up having a lot of fun. Tell us your reaction of things.
I don't know really. I saw a penguin that was very odd, very out of place.
That was Aurora.
Aurora. I didn't bother learning that name. I saw her with a watering can, wandering around. There was a blue mouse, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he wasn't doing anything. An old turtle, I think he was the mayor, and I recall that he gave you a gift.
Yeah. Okay. So this was actually a fantastic April Fool's joke. I thought this was hysterical because, Tortimer, who is the mayor of the town, did come out for the event, and he did give me a present. And he prefaced it by saying that, he didn't think all these jokes and tricks and lying to one another on April Fool's Day was really appropriate. But, he did want to give me this gift, and so, it was really good. And yeah, it was a total troll gift.
Really, what was it? I didn't get to see exactly what he gave you.
Oh, yes, yeah. He gave me a leaf.
A leaf.
Yeah, a leaf. It was hilarious.
I don't think that I'm getting the joke.
No, because okay, so in Animal Crossing, like in your inventory, like any furniture for your house, appears in the inventory as a leaf. But it's actually a couch or a table or a chair or something like that, And so in this case, the leaf represented a leaf.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sure it was funny if you had been there.
Well, yeah. Okay, but what about the trees? Cause, like I understand, like, this is like the cherry blossom season. And so, like, all the trees started changing colors, and it was very vibrant and cool.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see the trees beforehand, and so I couldn't tell that they were, like, not normal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair. I mean, you can take my word for it that it was very, very pretty. Did you go into the museum at all?
I did, yes. I went into the art gallery wing of the museum, and there was literally nothing there. It was quite a disappointment. I must say, this owl named Blathers talked to me for a very, very long time about art, and then showed me nothing.
Oh, yeah. So, I have not found any paintings yet at this point. So, yeah, that section is empty. There, like the fish section, actually, there's a lot of stuff in the fish section now. I've done a lot of fishing. I do have a few butterflies in the bug area. There's a bee. There's a ladybug. Yeah, and yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, there's not much there. I just started.
Well, I think the most exciting thing during the day is that there was a young boy I saw from a distance who was frolicking amongst the flowers and fell into a hole, and it was quite humorous. It was quite humorous seeing him trying to wiggle out, and he seemed so annoyed.
Yeah, that wasn't funny.
No. It was quite funny. It was most entertaining. I wish that you could have seen it, because that was most humorous.
No, that wasn't funny at all.
I show you it was.
Look, it was me in the hole, okay? I fell down the hole.
Oh, yeah. Well, then you're right. It wasn't funny to bring it up. Otherwise, yes. I don't know what else to say. This zebra asked me to deliver a shirt to someone, and I told the zebra no. I am a reporter. That is not my job. And I think the zebra was crying afterwards. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, yeah, they do that if you don't want to help them.
That seems remarkably selfish. I must say, it seems remarkably.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate you coming on. Was there anything else?
No. No. Otherwise, everything was quite like a normal town. And then I took the bus back to the city.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, thanks for joining us, Stefan, and we really do appreciate it. And yeah, so we're going to get a little bit into the games themselves. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on like the production history of this series and all. I am new, I am new to this series, and I've looked a lot into the production history of these games and such, but I've also listened to plenty of podcasts that covers the actual production side of things reasonably well. But there was a few things about it that I thought were pretty interesting. So this game is the idea of Katsuya Eguchi. Now he has it's been a long time employee of Nintendo, has worked on some just amazing games that just some of the true classics. He was a designer, like on Mario 3. I think that was his first credit at Nintendo. He worked on Mario World, Star Fox. and then started getting into Animal Crossing, but was a producer on stuff like Wii Sports, the 3D ports of Majora's Mask, and stuff. He has had his hand in so many of the games that we absolutely love. But when it was in the N64 phase that he came up with this idea of a game. And in his words, I ran across an interview where he wanted to capture these ideas of family, friendship, and community. And they were really born out of him moving to a city where he didn't know anybody, and how he met people, and how they formed bonds, and how they grew close, and how this place becomes a home. Now, the thing that's notable about the early development is every time it got ported to something, stuff was added to it. And so, when it came out on N64, so it originally came out on N64, but when they moved it over to GameCube, they upgraded it. And then when the Americans got it and they wanted to release it as Animal Crossing here in the States, then they took a game that was very Japan centric and made it more international by adding holidays and events and stuff that Western audiences would know. And then Japan really liked all of that stuff that was added, so they ported it back to Japan with that sort of stuff added. And so this has started this tradition of taking this game that is very similar between the different, the different new games and different upgrades that have so many similarities, and yet have these features that are added to each one. And what is it that's normally added? It's like Easter egg stuff. It's like quirky. It's quirky stuff that Tortimer says on April Fool's Day, and different characters and different dialogue. And there's so much dialogue in these games because the point is not to move on with the story, because there really isn't one. The goals that you have in this game are largely collectathons and fetch quests and deliveries and stuff like that. But the point of these games is to go essentially talk to your neighbors. And so there's so many different things that these neighbors are going to say to keep things fresh. So many different issues that they're having. Each one of the neighbors has a personality, and they are not perfect neighbors. And they can be gruff, and they can be rude. They can be overly giddy about things, and or downright lazy. And so they have things that might annoy you. They have quirks that might at times get under your skin. And that's one of the things that adds this kind of real dimension into this world. One of those things is like when you're trying to fill the museum with all the stuff you find, you have to give it to Blathers. And Blathers, oh my goodness, he can talk. He can talk, and that's intentional. Like the other members of the town will bring that up sometimes, and it can be very funny, but it can also be very, very irritating when you have that impulse to go. We got I found this. Take it, go. What the game is doing is saying, no, that's not this game. That's not this game. You need to slow down. And so it forces you to slow down. You're not going to complete your collectathon quickly. In fact, there's a lot of stuff that you're not even going to find this time of year. You're going to have to wait until later in the year. So the original game comes out originally on N64 in Japan, but that quickly moves over to GameCube and bounces here to America and then finally to Europe and then back to Japan. And then a few years later we get Wild World, and this is a DS game. And this is the game actually they based the movie on. Yes, there's a movie. We're going to get to that after the break. Which is kind of cool. There's not a lot of series that bounce back and forth, between handheld and console, but this is one. And it really does bounce back and forth. And so once we get Wild World, and Wild World adds more stuff, to the game. It's going to be, really, really relying on the Wi-Fi connection to really kind of open things up. We're going to jump back to console for the Wii, to get City Folk, which is the game that I'm playing. And City Folk was not the best received one, as I mentioned before. And as I understand it, a lot of that has to do with it doesn't add a lot from Wild World. The big thing that it adds is the city, which actually I kind of like, because you can go to the city, you can talk to a bunch of people there and have a big new atmosphere. But these are not your neighbors. These are people you run across, but they're not your neighbors. And so it kind of keeps, the larger world and your neighborhood separate. And I kind of dig that. But as a feature, it wasn't the best game, received games. That would change with New Leaf, which is a 3DS game. Again, we are bouncing back and forth between console and handheld. This time, you actually are the mayor, and not simply, one of the citizens of the village. And as mayor, you have a lot more control over the way your town looks and feels and functions. New Leaf has been one of those things that people really, really responded to and really, really liked. And that has been the one that, has been well played for several years. That came out in 2012, and it's finally this year on the Switch that we get New Horizons, which is the latest entry in the series. There are quite a few spin-offs. I didn't really want to get into them that much. What really interests me is how similar the games are. To the point that, most of the characters reoccur in multiple games, doing very similar things. Tom Nook is pretty consistently your landlord and the owner of the store. And you deal a lot with him. Starting in Wild World, we now have the Able Sisters shop that handles clothes and such. It wasn't in the very original release of the Japanese version of the first game, but the museum was added in one of the subsequent GameCube releases of the game. And this is the place where all of the your collectathon winnings get stored. In nearly all of these games, you have fishing and bug catch, flowers, and digging up fossils and all of these things. And this is also, you not only can deliver these to the museum to be displayed, but you can also sell them all, to Tom Nook and make a pretty darn good living off of this. I absolutely love the economy of Animal Crossing. Just catching fish and butterflies. I was able to pay off my house in just a few days. And I'm halfway through paying off the first expansion of my house in just a few more days. And so, this is the sort of economy that I can get behind, that, you can be a shell collector and still do quite well for yourself. Of course, the point of these games is not any one of these things. It's the experience of being in the place around these characters, around their concerns, their issues, what they desire, and connecting with the characters in this way. It's a life simulation game, that's really low on the stress meter. And I think that's one of the things that kind of sets it apart. I went into playing this game because I'd listened to some podcast about it and I didn't understand it. I really, as much as I was listening, I couldn't quite put my finger on the point. And playing it, I think I've tapped some into that. And I've been very, very, very much enjoying that aspect of it, of being around these characters. I mentioned last time trying to force myself to not hurry through it. And, I think the game is very, very aware of that your instinct is to hurry, that this is what other games have taught you to do. And it works against you on that to slow you down. And that can be frustrating, but it's also what really, really needs to happen. In the end, these games have a lot of personality. There's a lot of characters, both in the sense of the word that, oh, that's a character, and also, just that they're characters in the story. There's a lot of quirks. There's a lot of Easter eggs to be found. There's a lot going on, and you don't see it all. And I think ultimately the point of the game is to sit back and at least to see the part that's in front of you. We're going to be right back and tackle a little bit of the Animal Crossing movie. Hey, it's Kai here. We recently finished our latest EP, Quest of the Dragon Warrior. It's an electronic tribute to Dragon Warrior and the amazing music that game gave us. We're really excited about how this music came out, and we want you to have it for free. If you go to technofunkboy.com/Dragon Warrior and sign up for our weekly newsletter, you'll get the songs to download and keep for free forever. That's technofunkboy.com/Dragon Warrior, or check the show notes for a link. So welcome back. Okay, so in my research of this game, I ran across the movie and I actually asked some friends and some people who, and asked some friends who know more about this series than I do. Some people knew about the movie, but most actually did not. And I mean, there's a good reason for that. This is a Japanese only release, and it never made it over to the States. I thought it might be fun to try to track down. The internet did not disappoint me, and there was a very, very good fan dub of the movie that, for a while, I didn't even realize it was a fan dub for a little bit as I was watching the film. At first I thought it was like a legitimate, translation. It started giving it away actually when I was hearing the peas pop, from one of the characters that wasn't recorded all that well. She was, She's actually fantastic in that role. But the recording itself was not all that great. And I was starting to realize like, oh, this is the internet did this. But at the same time, it was really, it was a lot of fun. Now, warnings up front, that is not an official release. And it took me a while to find it. I found half of it on YouTube, and I think the other half of it had been taken down for copyright. But I was able to see the whole movie, to let y'all in on it. I have to say, it's like it is created in a very, very adorable anime style. It's technically based on Wild World. And it's just downright adorable, which is kind of what you want from this. It starts off with, Captain driving the main character, who's a girl named AI, by cab into town, and she is moving there. And it really doesn't know much about it. So she does the things that you do when you start this game. You go talk to the people, and you talk to you go to the city hall and talk to the mayor. In this, the mayor is very concerned about his re-election campaign and is very, very focused on that. And, so Tortimer is kind of talking about that, and Ai's completely lost. And then she goes over to Tom Nook, who gets her set up in a part-time job, and delivering around town. And of course, that's how we start to get to know the town. And that's how we get to start to get to know the town in the game as well, is, you're sent on these missions to kind of introduce you to people and to introduce you to ideas and how to play things. It's kind of, it's like this tutorial phase that's actually very well done, that actually gets you started in the things that you're going to be doing in this game. But just with some guidance from Tom Nook. She eventually runs into the other main characters of the game. Rosie is the first one. She runs into a boy named Yu, YU. Now, you're going to notice right away, the girl is named Ai and the boy is named Yu, and I cannot imagine that was not intentional. That these are representing, your, these are you in the game, and they're very craftily created to represent different ways to play the game, where I spends a lot of time with people and interacting with others. We see you, doing the collectathon thing, digging up fossils and catching bugs and running around town doing those things. And so these two characters are representing the different, the different ways that people can approach this. So the other main character that we have in here is Margie, and Margie is going to kind of become Ai's, best bud in town. They're on parallel paths of finding their place here, their purpose, what they're supposed to be doing in this environment. Along the way, we get to meet a great many of the different animals who live here. There are there's some hilarious scenes where she meets Blathers and Celeste, and Blathers just starts talking. Every time Blathers starts talking, Celeste kind of moves Ai out of the way and away from him, which turns out to just be be hilarious. And there are characters in the movie that intimidate her. Not even all the time, intentionally, but just have such stature and personality that she becomes wary around them. One of those centers around her making a delivery to Apollo's house, and you actually runs by and startles her and knocks her into Apollo's flower bed, and then immediately Mr. Rossetti jumps up and just starts yelling and screaming like he does in the game. Now, if you don't know, Mr. Rossetti in the game is a function in the game where the game tries to the original game tries to teach the players to no there's no autosave here. You need to save by by going to the save point, which is your bed, and saving there. And if you don't do that, when you turn it back on, Mr. Rossetti, who is like this big, I find him to be a very comical mole, jumps out of the ground, yelling and screaming, trying to make sure that you don't do that again. And there's a lot of stories of him scaring kids because he's so forceful, but he's like that in the movie, and just chews her out and tells her that he's basically the enforcer of the town and that sort of thing. And so we start seeing, even in the movie, all the character traits coming out. And so because she has fallen into Apollo's garden and messed up his roses, she is like very, very nervous around him anyways, and his kind of standoffish personality just emphasizes so the movie is like this. It actually follows things that you would do in the game. I goes on an adventure with you to go look for fossils, and that creates events. She finds messages in bottles that tell her to do certain things before winter comes, and that something will happen because of that. And that's actually kind of the culmination of the movie. The climax of things is in that festival. And so, she does these. Margie spends a lot of time designing things in the movie, which is things you can do in the game as well, is designing certain types of clothing and stuff like that. And so we the movie's actually really remarkable by of being able to mimic the things that you will do in town. And I'm sitting here as I'm watching it, the only thing I can think of is like, man, I would enjoy this twice as much if I knew these games better, because all of the Easter eggs in the movie are constantly referencing the Easter eggs in the game, which, and there's so many of them, but the ones I caught, I was like, I was very pleased. I was like, oh, cool, I caught that. And the movie does Easter eggs properly. A proper Easter egg is when it's there. But if you don't get it, if you don't know what it's referencing, you're not going to be, you don't feel like you've missed something. And so that a lot of movies will put Easter eggs in very, 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 very poorly, and make you feel like you've been left out of something. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about the Warcraft movie, that there was a lot of these towns and stuff. It was like, I was sitting there, it's like, I know this means something to World of Warcraft fans, but I am lost, as to what in the world we're looking at. That's when you do these things wrong. But this movie doesn't. And it's like the stuff that I didn't understand, it passed by as a plot point and not as something that I've just missed out on. But the stuff that I caught was really, really cool. Just that earlier in the day when I watched this movie, I was playing and I had found my first pitfall seed. Now the pitfall seed is you can bury it and it will cause another character, one of the characters, or, you know, if you have somebody visiting your town, if they walk over it, they'll fall into the ground. And I found this seed and I had no idea what it was. And so I looked it up and I realized what it was for and how to use it and all that. And so now I'm watching the movie and there's a point where all the characters start falling into these holes in the ground that you has planted as pranks. And it was great timing because I was like, oh, I got that. I just found that thing. That's what they're referencing. And it was very, very cool. And so there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff like that in here, but the main force of the movie is, and this is where I think it really succeeds, is doing exactly what the original point of the game was. This is a movie about family and friendship and community. It's about moving to this place alone and finding friends there and finding a place to belong there. And that's the game. That's the point. That's what they're going for in this game. And so I think the movie succeeds wildly. And, you know, and I really wish they would have an official English release of it. Cause I thought it was a great deal of fun. And something I was very glad to have watched. And so, you know, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily something I can recommend to you since, that fan translation is definitely not official. And, this is a Nintendo, a Nintendo project, and Nintendo is very, very big on their intellectual property online. We'll put it like that. And so, it doesn't seem like they appreciate the fan translation being out there. And so not necessarily something that I am able to recommend, but it is something that it does exist. And that I was very happy to have watched for research purposes only. And so, that's gonna be it. I'm really glad. I'm really glad to be playing this game right now. And, I do think that I'm going to continue playing it, at least for a while. It's very, very hard. Even as much research as I did. And this is one of the reasons I thought I was going to do a fuller, like a really thorough review of it this week when I recorded my first thoughts last week. But I really did find that this was a game that was much bigger than I expected it to be. And it's also a game that cannot be rushed without actually going into your system and changing the date. Which kind of defeats the purpose if you're playing Animal Crossing. This is a game that is meant to be played in small bursts over a very long period of time with events that go a full year, of real time, a full year that, with seasons that match your own, the seasons that you are experiencing. It's going to match those, and that's something that's very interesting to me and something that I want to continue with, and I want to see more of this game, and I want to, kind of delve deeper into this. And so I will continue playing it, as prescribed in short bursts, over probably many more months, hopefully, and be able to see a lot more of what this game has in store. because like I said, it is very substantial. I really do appreciate you joining us today. I do hope that you are remaining safe in this time. If you want to come hang out with us online, you are more than welcome to do so. The Discord link is in the show notes, or you can just search Technofunk Boy on Discord, and we should pop up there with a picture of Drum, and you come hang out with us. If you are able, if you're finding value in the show and want to help support us financially, we really wish you would. Please go over to patreon.com/technofunkboy and show your support that way. That really does mean a lot to us. Our goal is to make it so that we are not losing money on this show, and we are still losing some money every month to produce this show. It's not a lot. It's not going to, blow the bank account, but we are losing money, and we would like to rectify that as soon as possible. So if you are able and willing to do that, we do hope that you would go over to patreon.com/technofunkboy. It means a lot to us, and so we really do appreciate that. Otherwise, I really do thank you for joining me today, and we will see you next week.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Technofunk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Technofunk Boy, on Facebook at the Technofunk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.